real estate laws in Mexico. Well, hello, Katie Ibarra. Katie, is there anything new about buying and selling homes in Mexico this year?
Yeah, actually, it has gotten a little bit more complex compared to a few years ago. But what we're seeing is really putting in more securities for the buyers and their money and their investment. So it's a good thing. So specifically, the document requirements for SAT, which is the Mexican version of IRS, has increased. The government really, they're just working to get more measures around combating money laundering is a big part of this. So any industry that has large money amount purchases is experiencing this new requirements, new documentation, all these type of things like car dealerships, high-end jewelry, and then of course real estate falls into that.
So when you buy a property or sell a property, you have to show a lot more documentation.
That's right. That's right. So now it's two government issued photo IDs. The proof of address that you show is going to be a bill that has your name exactly as it appears on your passport. If it's not exact, if you have middle name on your passport and the bill has middle initial, you're going to want to go to that utility company and get it updated. If there's a married couple, they're more than likely going to want to see a marriage certificate. And if you're coming from the US or Canada, you're going to have to go get that apostilled at the Secretary of State so that it's recognized here. Some of these things have been required in the past, the marriage certificate part, but it was kind of willy-nilly which notario was going to enforce getting that information. And now it's becoming pretty much across the board. Everybody's going to want that. I'm trying to think what else. The other piece is on the seller's side. The organization that we would consider like a consumer protection agency in Mexico is called Profeco. And now they've required all real estate agencies to use a contract that they approve for someone listing their house for sale. So that's also something that's new this year. I think that pretty much covers it, but it's just new hoops to jump through. You hear some people moan and groan, but at the end of the day, they are trying to protect the consumers. So that's a good thing.
What's the residential housing market like in Mexico? Is this a good time to buy?
That's a great question. Well, I would say yes. The market the last 2 years has been extremely sluggish, very slow. We are seeing a slight uptick, I'd say, since about October. More buyers coming down and looking around, some taking action. We're not up to numbers that we had 2022, which was a bit of a boom year. We had almost 500 sales transactions in 2022 up here on the North Shore. And it slowed down 60% in 2 years. Last year, we only had like 200 transactions across the whole North Shore, which is not good at all. But part of that, I think, trickles down from the fact that so many of our buyers come from the US. I think the last statistic I saw was about 65%. And people in the US have had difficulty with the housing market. Exchange rates have also been a factor. There was a period where the US dollar was only getting 17 pesos, and people hit the brakes and said, I'm going to wait this out. And now we're back up around 20. So they're getting more house for their money. So some of these factors, we've got people who I call financial refugees who can't afford to live in the States and want to come down. Well, the new financial minimums for a visa here have hurt those folks. And then, of course, I don't want to get into politics, but we do also talk about political refugees. Either way that the election was going to go in the US, we knew we would see a trickle of somebody unhappy. And so, anyhow, now that the holidays are over and we're starting into the new year, while in the fall it was a trickle uptick of people, we think there's going to be significantly more. If that happens, the next factor with our market here is inventory of residential housing is relatively low. So if we see a bit of a rush, it could sway to a seller's market in that there's not that much out there and a lot of people looking. So I would encourage people who are thinking about it, one, make sure you've checked out whether you can get a visa, and then come down and start exploring and see if this is a right fit.
Okay. And again, you said the north shore of Lake Chapala. Lake Chapala is the largest lake in Mexico, and you cover the areas specifically of Chapala, which is a city on the lake of Lake Chapala. And then you cover Chapala, Ajijic, Jocotepec, and some smaller towns, and then all the little towns between, like San Antonio. So you've got all of that you've been covering for years.
You've got it. Our prime spot would go as far west as Jocotepec. You see a little bit of trickle to the south shore, but Jocotepec west and all the way east to San Nicolas, which is the last town that falls within the municipality of Chapala, and a little bit north into Ixtlahuacan and Buena Vista.
Okay. In the past years, you've shared with us that a buyer can expect the process, when you're buying or selling. What can you expect to happen?
Specifically with buyers, there's a couple things that I check right out of the gate when somebody calls me up and says, hey, I'm up here in Ohio and I'm looking to come down and buy a house. I ask them, where do they stand with their immigration? Are they coming as a tourist? Have they already investigated getting a resident visa? Or do they have it? And you can technically still close on the purchase of a house as a tourist. However, you're going to want to know that you qualify for the minimum requirements to get that visa and hopefully be in the process of getting it. You're going to run up against stumbling blocks as a homeowner if you don't have, one, the visa, and two, the tax ID number, which requires a visa. You can't get that RFC, the tax ID number, without a visa. And one of the first stumbling blocks is putting your CFE, the electric bill, in your own name. They're going to ask you for that tax ID number. So there's going to be other things along the way. And especially when it comes to the sellers, when they want to sell, they're going to want to show a tax ID number as part of qualifying to exempt from capital gains tax. And that's a big deal. It's about a 35% tax on the property. So you want to exempt, and a lot of people do, but they'll need a tax ID number at that point as well. But there are other things in life in Mexico that are going to require it. So making sure they have their immigration in order is number one. Number two, I need to get a feel for where they are. Have they ever been here? Is this exploratory? Or do they say, oh, I've been coming for winters. We know exactly what neighborhoods we like. And okay, is your money in order? Most people seem to realize that this is primarily a cash market. But every now and again, we'll get somebody who says, oh, well, I don't have enough cash to buy a house. How do people do that? Some folks are selling their home north of the border, and then they come with that cash in hand. As far as financing, it's not impossible for a foreign buyer to get financing, but it's very difficult. And usually the terms are not very favorable. So I want to make sure that people are aware of that. And then the other piece, if they say, no, I am ready to go, I'm going to buy, they fall in love with a house, and you find out maybe their cash isn't really cash. It's not liquid. It's tied up in an investment. So you want to make sure you've talked with your agent about your situation with your finances, and that if you fall in love with a house, you're not going to miss out because I need to wait another month to access my funds, that sort of thing. So those are the first two biggies: immigration and your finances are in order. And then after that, you go out with your agent and you look at neighborhoods and you look at properties. And when it's time to make an offer, which I had met with a client already this morning to sign an offer, you're going to pick what your offer price is, how long till closing. That's typically 1 to 2 months. And so you'll propose a closing date. You'll have a choice to elect if you want to have a property inspection on that offer. That's optional. In a very, very tight competitive market, you want to minimize the number of contingencies you add on a contract because that makes it less attractive. But we do typically encourage people to get the property inspected. That's at the expense of the buyer. It depends on the size and the age of the house, how much that inspector is going to charge. But I tell people to expect, give or take, around $350 US. And we get that done within about a week once the offer is accepted. The other piece that people should understand when they're doing that is they're not going to come back with a report that you then create a to-do list for the seller. Oh, this tile's chipped, or this ceiling fan is wonky. Little stuff like that, you're probably making a to-do list for yourself once you're the homeowner. You're really just checking for major system issues. If there's plumbing and electrical, big stuff, that's what you're watching for. And then you could either back away slowly and say, I'm out. I don't like what I see on the report. Or you can renegotiate. Maybe you've taken little money back that you're going to use to get those fixed yourself. Once you've signed off on that inspection, then you're needing to get a deposit in, and you've got 5 business days. You're going to wire transfer to the escrow company your deposit, and then you're under contract. That property will come off the market. And this all happens pretty quickly in a week or two. After that, foreign buyers need to be at the closing, and it's best if they plan to be here about a week before the closing. The government requires them to do a permit for a foreign buyer. It's called an SRE, and they'll have to go to the notario's office about a week before the closing to see about having that done.
What is a notario?
Okay, thanks for asking that. A notario is nothing like a notary in the US. It's the highest level attorney in Mexico, and they are the only ones that are able to transfer title on property, and that's where all closings take place. I guess to tie up that process, the last piece then, around the time that you're at the notario signing that permit, you're about a week out. That's when you're going to get your final closing cost and send your final 90% of the purchase price with closing cost in a wire transfer to the escrow company. And then you close and you take possession, and you should be handed keys at the end of the closing. There is currently no way to get a license in Jalisco to be a real estate agent.
What is Jalisco?
That's the state where I reside.
Okay.
Lake Chapala, Guadalajara, Puerto Vallarta, we're all within Jalisco state.
Okay.
So this past year, the lawmakers did vote into law that we're going to start licensure. Now, the big question mark is, how long will it take for them to develop the program of study and the exam and start licensing people? We don't know. Hasn't happened yet. So technically, you could be working with somebody who does or does not know what the heck they're doing. You really want to vet them. But that said, there is a national certification. So this is Mexico-wide for real estate agents. And I took that class last January and passed the exam in February. So there are those of us like myself that participated in that and have the certification. And I would highly recommend that you ask that of the person you're going to work with. I don't think most people are malicious. I'm sure there are some bad apples out there, but you want somebody who knows how to steer you away from the pitfalls and knows what the laws are and just has your safety in mind when you're embarking on this process.
Okay. Okay, now we've talked about a lot of stuff. What didn't we talk about that comes up to your mind that we might want to add at this point?
Good question. I don't know. I feel like we covered most everything. Really, if somebody is thinking they're going to come down and have a visit, I'd encourage them to reach out to me. I'm happy to answer questions as they prepare for that. And they can always email me. And I also have a US and Mexican phone number. And then I am always happy to schedule time with people if they'd like to meet while they're here.
Okay. All right. And Katie Ibarra from my hometown, Columbus, Ohio. She's been down here not as long as I have, but she's been down here 15 years. I've been down here 20 years. But it's always great to talk with you. And we'll have to get together in maybe 3 or 6 months and get the next real estate hotspot update. Thank you, Katie.
Thank you, Bill.
We go live every Saturday at 10 a.m. Central Time. That's this Saturday. Click the subscribe button and you'll get a notification. Thank you so much, Katie, for joining us today. You're a wealth of information, and thank you for watching. We have many more videos to come. Click that subscribe button and we'll see you in the next video.